Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. I'm coming to you today from the decks behind the Tokyo Midtown Shopping Center near Roppongi. I plan to do a video over at Aoyama Park, which is usually my favorite place to do a video, but it's just far too noisy there today. I've never heard so many cicadas in the summertime as I heard today, and as I was walking along, my ears were ringing because of the noise. Not only that, but at that time they decided to start practicing the, I guess, new glide path for the Haneda Airport. Aircraft have recently been allowed to come down over the city on their approach to Haneda instead of over Tokyo Bay, in anticipation for increased air traffic as tourism is increased and Olympics approaches. Due to the virus pandemic, there have been far fewer flights, and when they were practicing this glide path recently, only about one airplane every 10 minutes was coming down. But as luck would have it, when I was trying to make a video, they were conducting a new test, and they were having aircraft come down in pairs, side by side, some distance apart, and they were coming down about every 5 minutes or so, which was quite amazing. Either all the aircraft have been diverted to use this glide path over Tokyo, or there's an increase in flights. So I'm not sure which is the case, but probably the former rather than the latter. And to top all of this off, while I was trying to make the video, a helicopter decided to come and sit idling at Hardy Barracks for a while. Aoyama Park is only about 250 feet away from the U.S. Army Hardy Barracks, so when a helicopter decides to sit there and idle after landing, it's quite noisy. So I gave up on trying to make a video over there, and I decided to come over here to Midtown. Today's video is going to be about two cameras, but two very similar cameras. They are both Konica cameras, and they are both Konica Pearl cameras. Here I have a Konica Pearl 1 medium format folding camera, and over here I have a Konica Pearl 2. The Konica Pearl series began production in the 1940s, in the post-war years, before 35mm photography had really caught on. And a large percentage of the cameras made in Japan were either folding 120 film cameras like these, or twin lens reflex cameras. And quite a few were sold. Konica began producing cameras on a large scale when it introduced the Pearl series, and these were quite well-made cameras, and they caught on very well with the Japanese market. I'll go ahead and start with the Pearl 1. I'll set the Pearl 2 aside over here. The Pearl 1, as you can see, is quite a simple camera as far as folding cameras go. It has a couple of windows located here on the top for a rangefinder, but the rangefinder in this camera is not coupled. It has a separate rangefinder, which you focus using this focusing wheel on the top. And like a normal rangefinder camera, you focus looking through the eyepiece, and you turn this until the split images are lined up. And but unlike a camera with a coupled rangefinder, as soon as you get the rangefinder set in this, you have to look at the dial on the top, see what the distance is, and then you turn the focusing tab until the number on the focusing scale matches what you have selected on the rangefinder. It's a little bit complicated, or seems a little bit complicated, but with a little practice it's quite easy to use. The features of the Pearl 1 are a really nice Hexar lens. In this case it's an f4.5 lens, triplet lens, and a Durax shutter, which has shutter speeds from 1 second to 1/100th of a second, as well as a bulb and a T setting. In those days, in the 1940s, film technology wasn't very advanced, and there weren't a lot of options available for film, particularly roll film, 120 film, and the film speeds were generally slow, so having a 1/100th maximum shutter speed was not much of a handicap. Overall, these are a very well made and quite easy to use camera. I'll go ahead and fold this one up and show you a little bit about how it works and how it operates. On the bottom here we have a tripod socket. This one is set up for a 3/8, but most of these have an insert which steps it down to 1/4 of an inch. And over here we have the film winding knob, which folds up flush against the body. On the back here we have a window which you use to count the exposures. You just wind until you see the next exposure number coming up, and when it's centered in the window, then you are ready to shoot the next frame. The inside of the camera is quite simple. To open it, you push up on the latch on the right side and pull open the door. And you can see it's quite simple on the inside. Film loading is very, very simple. You simply put your new roll film on this side, and you would thread in the film to a take-up spool on this side, and simply wind until the arrows come up. The arrows on the paper on the back of the film come up over the film chamber, and then close the door, and then simply keep winding until the number 1 comes up in the window below. Unfolding the camera is quite simple. First I'd open up the foot here, and then I push down the button under my thumb and pop it open, and the camera is ready to go. You focus on your subject using the rangefinder on the top, and then you transfer the setting on the rangefinder to your focusing tab. Then you would select your shutter speed and your aperture. You have your aperture ring here in the rear, pointing to the different f-stop numbers, and then your shutter speed ring. And then you charge the shutter, and you compose and simply shoot. This is the shutter button located on the left-hand side. So quite simple and easy to use and operate. These are wonderful cameras with excellent lenses. If you are looking for a medium format camera for shooting 6x45 photography, a little bit smaller than, like, say, the 6x6 you get from a twin lens reflex camera, but still it's medium format and gives you a lot of resolution compared to 35mm, and far more than you get from digital. And since it's a 6x45 camera, it's small enough to fold up and put in a coat pocket, or in the pocket of a pair of baggy pants or jeans. Just quite a wonderful little camera. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Pearl 2, which has the same basic operation but with a few improvements. The first and most important improvement of the Pearl 2 was a much improved shutter with a maximum speed of 1/500th of a second. Of course, this was the optional shutter. A less expensive version of the Konica Pearl 2 was made. It was the 2B or something like that, which featured a Durex shutter with more limited shutter speeds. But this made the camera less expensive and more competitive with the 35mm cameras, which were just starting to come out on the marketplace at that time. The overall shape and operation of the Pearl 2 is very similar to the Pearl 1. They have pretty much the same basic design, but another great improvement of the Pearl 2 is that it has a coupled rangefinder, which is quite convenient. So, like a later rangefinder camera, as you focus the camera, a coupling is connected to the rangefinder inside the camera, and as you focus the lens, you can see the split images move. So that removes one of the steps of operation that you had to go through when using the Pearl 1 camera. Another good thing about a lot of the Pearl 2 cameras, or most of them, is they came with a slightly faster f3.5 lens. I believe the 4.5 lens was a less expensive option, but I'm not entirely sure because I've seen these cameras with both types of lenses, 4.5 and f3.5 lens. Another interesting thing that the Pearl 2 has, which the original Pearl does not, is a flash shoe and a connector for a flash cord, but this uses the very old style Kodak flash connector. I believe there are adapters you can use to adapt it to use a PC cord, or you can simply find one of those old handle flashes with the Kodak type cord attachment, which were so popular with news photographers back in the 1940s and 1950s. The operation of the Pearl 2 is very similar to the Pearl 1. Of course, with the exception of having to, the coupled rangefinder. What you do is you focus, and then you would adjust the rangefinder using, the f-stop or aperture using this lever on the bottom. And you can see a red indicator here on top. It's a little bit similar to, I guess, the Western cameras and the way that works. And on the front here, of course, you have the shutter speed dial, just like the Pearl 1. And for shooting, you simply cock the shutter, you compose and focus and make the necessary adjustments, and the shutter button is once again in the exact same spot. A cool thing that we have here on the top of the Pearl 2 is we have a focus indicator and a depth of field gauge, which makes it easy to see how the distance in feet that your subject is away, and also giving you an idea of how much depth of field you have for any given aperture. So quite an excellent camera. When folding the Pearl 2, you have to remember, and pretty much any folding camera, make sure to focus the camera back down to infinity so the lens isn't sticking out, because if the lens is protruding, the door is not going to shut properly. With the lens focused in, you can pop the door shut. Putting in the film is quite similar on the Pearl 2 compared to the original Pearl, but there is another improvement, and that is the latch system on the side here. So one problem I have with some of these old folding cameras, the Pearl and old Zeiss Icon Super Icontas, is that the lever to open the door is underneath the carry handle on the side, so you kind of have to stick your finger under there and kind of play with it to get it to open up, which is, it works, and I guess there's less risk of you accidentally tripping the lever and opening the door and exposing your film. But the Pearl 2 has just a much simpler latch system like you find on a lot of rangefinder cameras which were produced in the 1950s and 1960s. Loading the film is the exact same process. You put the roll of film on the left side here, pull the paper backing across the film chamber, thread it into the take-up spool, turn the take-up spool and wind the film until the arrows on the back of the film are lined up over the middle of the film chamber. Then close the door, push back down the catch on the end, and simply wind the film until the number 1 is showing in the window. Now, these are quite amazing cameras, and despite their simplicity and how old they are capable of taking quite incredible photos, especially with the much more high quality modern film that we have today and much improved processing techniques. I've had a number of Pearl cameras. I had a couple of Pearl 4 cameras. I believe those are one of my favorite film cameras of all time. They are amazing cameras, and I wish I still had mine. I got one which I got for a reasonable price because it was described as not working, and I found out it had a faulty film counting mechanism in it, so I was able to fix that easily enough. And then someone heard that I had it and offered me money for it, and being a person who finds it hard to say no to a really good offer for a camera, I sold the camera. And then later on I came across another one which had a faulty shutter, and I also got it for a good price, and upon closer inspection it had the identical shutter which comes in the later Konica 35mm cameras. So for me to fix it was about as easy as making toast, so I fixed it, and I shot that one for nearly 2 years before someone heard about it and made me another offer. So now I no longer have any Konica Pearl 4 cameras, but I still have a couple of the earlier ones. So these cameras I'll be listing for sale in my new online store, Japan Vintage Camera, as well as my Etsy and eBay stores. If you're interested in purchasing a Konica Pearl camera, please visit my stores. I'll post links to the stores in the description below the video. I'll also be listing a lot more cameras shortly. Due to our recent vacation and national holidays, things are getting kind of, I've been backed up a little bit here, but I got most of the way caught up yesterday, and I hope to be all the rest of the way caught up with my orders and shipping everything tomorrow. The only problem I have now is a lack of shipping labels again, and they're supposed to deliver those in the morning, so anyway, I hope I get all that squared away. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more videos about vintage Japanese cameras or photography in Japan, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.